The problem isn't that you're alone. The problem is that no one is enough for you. There's a world right here in the same room as you, and that world doesn't hear you. You stop shouting too. So tell me, are you truly alone, or have you retreated to a place where no one can reach you anymore? You feel like something is missing, but you can't quite put your finger on it. There are people, there are voices, there are laughs, but you can't connect with any of them. Sitting in a cafe, the laughter from the next table sounds fake to your ears. In the middle of a conversation, you nod in agreement, but your mind has already drifted elsewhere. As your fingers trace meaningless patterns on the table, the thought crosses your mind, is that all there is? And then you start doubting yourself. Maybe the problem is with you. Maybe you're overthinking it. Maybe you really are disconnected. But that disconnect isn't on the surface. It's growing somewhere deeper, in a void you can't quite put into words. Over time, you realize this isn't just loneliness. It's about the way you see things. You notice the gap between what people say and what they mean. A brief hesitation in someone's eyes, a slight crack in their tone, it's telling you something, and you can't ignore it. That's why even a simple conversation becomes exhausting, because you're not just listening, you're deciphering. You're not just looking, you're seeing. And this sets you apart from others. But here a dangerous thought begins: I'm different. At first, this thought feels like an explanation. Then, little by little, it turns into a wall. You pull back to protect yourself. You speak less. You open up less. People see this as distance. They read it as coldness. And you fall right into the very thing you feared: not being understood. Maybe the issue isn't being different. Maybe the issue is never feeling fully at home anywhere. People move quickly on the surface. Small jokes, easy emotions, quick connections. But your mind doesn't work at that speed. You can't consume things immediately. You turn them over in your mind. You weigh them. Sometimes a single sentence lingers inside you for days. Sometimes a brief conversation with someone plays over and over in your mind. This slowness looks like a mismatch from the outside, but actually it's a kind of depth. And depth is unsettling for most people, because depth can't sustain masks for long. People generally show each other not their truths, but their acceptable versions. Small masks, socially polished faces. And this maintains the order. But when you start to see beneath those masks, the game is up. When you notice the difference between what someone says and what they feel, nothing feels the same anymore. That's why sometimes you don't want to speak, because you sense that what's being said isn't real. And this pushes you into silence. This silence eventually turns into a habit, then into an identity. Now be honest with yourself. When was the last time you really talked to someone, were truly present? Or were you just playing a role? If this question hits a nerve, don't brush it off. Maybe the problem isn't that people stay on the surface, but that when you go deep, you find no one by your side. And if this feels familiar, don't just watch it pass by. Don't keep your answer bottled up inside, because sometimes voicing a thought means seeing it for the first time. Psychologically speaking, this situation feeds off a strange duality. On one hand, you feel people's emotions intensely. Your empathy is high. But at the same time, you start analyzing those emotions. Why do they feel this way? Are they truly sincere? Why did they say that? This analytical process gets in the way of connection. And before you know it, you're not in the conversation, you're outside of it. you become an observer, not a participant. And being an observer eventually turns into an exhausting loneliness. The more unsettling part is this situation feeds on itself. As connecting with people becomes harder, you withdraw further. The more you withdraw, the less understood you become. And at some point, your mind forms this sentence: so the problem must be with me. This thought settles in quietly. You trust yourself less. You share less. And so loneliness ceases to be a consequence. It becomes a belief. But we need to pause here and ask, is the problem really with you, or is what you're seeking simply rare in this world? A mind that craves depth cannot be nourished by superficiality. This isn't a choice, it's a limit. For some people, conversation is a pastime. For you, it must be a connection, a real connection. Otherwise, it feels meaningless. That's why you get bored in many settings. That's why most relationships remain unfulfilled. Because you're not looking for what's scarce, you're looking for what's real. But real things aren't easy to find. In this search, there are moments when you find yourself in conflict with yourself. On one hand, you want to be understood. You truly want someone to see you, to hear you. But on the other hand, you believe no one can do that. This contradiction splits you in two. You want to reach out, but you pull back. You want to open up, but you stay silent. And over time, this becomes a cycle. And perhaps the most unsettling possibility is this: you might not actually want to break this cycle. Because the moment it breaks, everything will change. You'll have to truly open up to people. The possibility of being seen will arise. And being seen isn't as safe as you think. Because if someone truly sees you, you can no longer hide. That distance, that control, that sense of inner superiority, it all starts to crack. That's why, without realizing it, you set a boundary. People approach you, but at that exact moment, something shifts. Either you pull back or you push them away. A slight chill, a subtle distance, an invisible wall. And then the same result again. No one stays. But maybe no one really left. You just didn't let anyone stay. Because staying means unraveling you. And unraveling brings with it the risk of falling apart. So you keep appearing strong, to be self-sufficient, to need no one. But somewhere in the night, in those silent moments when no distractions remain, that truth you've suppressed surfaces. You want someone to truly know you, but you're not sure how much of that real you is lovable. That's why loneliness isn't just a state, it becomes a form of defense. And this is the most dangerous part. Over time, a person can no longer distinguish between what protects them and what limits them. Perhaps your real battle isn't with the outside world, but with this invisible system you've built within yourself. Because one part of you wants to connect while the other runs away from it. One part wants to be understood, while the other fears the responsibility that comes with being understood. And this conflict keeps you constantly suspended. You're neither completely alone nor truly connected. Always in between. Always incomplete. And perhaps what wears you down the most is never fully arriving anywhere. Now be honest. If someone were to appear before you tomorrow and had the capacity to truly understand you, someone deep enough to truly stay, could you open yourself up to them completely? Or would you stop somewhere along the way and hold back a part of yourself? Because sometimes the issue isn't finding the right person. It's how much of yourself you can give when that person comes along. And if there's still something inside you saying, don't trust completely, maybe the root of your loneliness isn't outside. Maybe before anyone can ever be enough for you, you're not letting anyone truly reach you. Perhaps the most merciful part of it is this: as your self-protection deepens, the bonds you form with reality grow thinner, because the defense mechanism weaves invisible threads around you, a web that appears thin, durable, and flexible, but recoils in a startling way when touched. Every new relationship reaches out a hand into this web. The moment that hand first touches you, all your fragility, shyness, petty calculations, and great fears come to the surface. The curiosity, patience, or shyness in the other person's eyes takes shape accordingly, and in that moment you realize that the part of you left outside the web is waiting for you, not just waiting but calling out. But the tone of the call is foreign to you. What you're accustomed to is a silent withdrawal, a small boundary, an inaudible countermove. This withdrawal becomes such a habit that you can no longer distinguish which is true defense and which is restriction. The formula of openness you've created for yourself functions like a test against others. You start by trying small pieces, conducting trust tests, measuring which parts of your heart you can share. When a boundary seems about to be crossed, you unintentionally leave it chill or make up an excuse. You say you're too busy, that you've been wounded by the past, that you can't give right now. The other person's patience runs out, or they respond with deeper curiosity, and something arises within you. Between anger and relief. Anger because it feels like time is being wasted. Relief because the boundary has been preserved. When this cycle runs its course for a while, it builds an illusion. People coming and going, being abandoned, unexpected loneliness, all of these are attributed to external causes. But in reality, the narrative always revolves around the same protagonist: your own established boundaries. People come and you let them approach the shore, but you cannot tolerate the waves wetting you beyond the shore. You arrange the stones carefully, leaving only a small gap for a finger. No one can fully walk over and sit beside you. Over time, this sense of incompleteness becomes part of your identity, offering a kind of sense of belonging. It becomes a mask for appearing strong, as if you take pride in your loneliness. But in the night's most vulnerable moment, when the lights go out and everyone's expectations crumble, that deep need beneath the mask resurfaces. To be seen, to be understood, to be able to trust without being swept away. And the pain here is this: the true test of trust isn't whether someone comes along and accepts you as you are. It's whether you're willing to let go of the part of yourself you're still holding on to in that moment of acceptance. It's easy to think people have abandoned you because framing it as an external cause offers comfort. On the other hand, if there's a malevolent inner structure blocking acceptance, the real culprit isn't outside. It's you. You're the one closing the door, drawing the curtain when a guest arrives. When this is realized, two paths emerge. Either you choose to unravel the threads of this woven web one by one, and in doing so you accept the sorrows, the risks of rejection, and the heartbreaks, or you continue to live within the web, accepting the silent argument that trust is more precious than safety. The first path is difficult. There you feel the armor of protection thinning, exposed to the cold wind of vulnerability. Yet there also lies the possibility of genuine connection, resilience, and a surprising closeness. The second path, however, is easy yet exhausting. Constant tests, the persistent feeling that someone is missing, stories left unfinished. The courage required to be fully present in a relationship is not merely needing one person. It is the ability to allow that person into more of yourself, to relax your own control. When this ability is lost, forming a bond becomes a technique, careless, measured, and ultimately inadequate. Perhaps the greatest misconception is the idea that loneliness defines you. Loneliness is not an identity but a reflex. It is a survival strategy for someone who was once wounded. As long as the strategy works, life goes on. But when the strategy begins to restrict life, it must be abandoned as soon as possible. By abandoning, I don't mean a radical withdrawal, just a small practical change. Saying yes to one more invitation. Not cutting someone off while they speak, not boasting about your pain but sharing it, leaving a door in the security wall and not locking it. Sometimes that door is making a phone call, sometimes it's simply making eye contact, and sometimes it's telling the most terrifying part of a story and waiting for the other person's reaction. To allow means accepting the possibility of loss, but also the possibility of gain. And life's most valuable words are often spoken when doors are opened. Hearts that remain silent, however, can never truly speak. In the end, the real question is this: if the person who appears before you tomorrow were to truly invite you to stay, which would you choose? To set boundaries once more and step back? Or to crack open that door and see what the wind brings? The answer lies in where you seek the root of your loneliness. If the root is within you, external changes offer only temporary relief. But if you have the courage to take small, exhausting, sometimes seemingly disastrous steps, then loneliness eventually ceases to be an option. It becomes not a choice to be made, but a habit left over from the past. And perhaps the most liberating thing is this: no longer using loneliness as a defense, but seeing it as a memory, a learning process. Then people come, some stay, some leave, but instead of shouting "no one is left" after those who leave, you try to truly stay with those who remain. With the gaps, the fears, but with an open door. Have you noticed? Sometimes you don't choose loneliness, yet you always return to it. At this point, a disturbing possibility emerges. Perhaps loneliness isn't just about the outside world. Perhaps you too don't quite belong anywhere within yourself. You sometimes feel like a stranger even within your own thoughts. There are moments when you can't keep up with the pace of your own mind. And this becomes a reflection of the disconnect you feel on the outside. People generally give up parts of themselves to fit in. They simplify themselves to be more understandable. They smooth themselves out to be more accepted. You can't do that. Or you don't want to. That's why some doors never open for you. But at the same time, you don't want to step through those doors either. This isn't a privilege. It's a price. And every price has its reward. Loneliness sometimes protects you. It keeps you away from unnecessary ties, from fake closeness. But at the same time, it leaves you deprived of warmth, of those small but genuine moments that come by chance. Maybe the issue isn't loneliness itself. It's what you do with it. You can build a world within yourself. A world filled with thoughts, meaning, and depth. But no matter how rich that world may be, at some point this question knocks on your door. If you don't share this with someone, does it truly exist? Stop right here. Don't answer that question just yet. Because perhaps the real issue is this: do you truly want to be understood, or do you prefer to protect yourself with the idea that no one can fully understand you? And if someone were to truly see you, without hiding anything, without sugarcoating anything, would you still feel this alone?